Let's go to something more pleasant, which is recently in Italy, they elected a new prime minister. Her name is Giorgia Meloni. And of course, since she's a leader of a conservative party, she was immediately labeled a fascist, a far right figure, a dangerous person by CNN, by mainstream media, all of these things. Sure. And if you just, consume media on a very surface level, you probably think that Italy just elected Mussolini again. By the way, first female prime minister ever.
Nobody seems to
Nobody
care
talks
on
about that. It's like there's no girl power anymore. It's Mussolini again. Okay, whatever. Whatever. But if you do some digging, and I have to admit I had to do some digging because I wasn't totally familiar with her. She seems pretty darn awesome. I would say like if you watch her speeches, okay, if you look into what she's all about, I wish I could vote for this woman in a American election, you know? And here's the reason why. Unlike a lot of conservatives in the US, she embraces the cultural fight against cultural Marxism. She doesn't pussyfoot around it. She doesn't dance around it. She says the quiet part out loud and she just takes it on head on and addresses it and says she's going to fight against it. There's a particular speech that we'll link, and I don't know where it's from. It's from some sort of Italian event. Although she's spoken at CPAC in America.
Oh, interesting.
I linked that. You probably saw it. Her CPAC
You
speech.
did? I
Yes.
actually
There's a
didn't see
CPAC
it.
speech in there. She's speaking in English. Her English is not bad.
Oh, damn. I need to watch that. I thought
Yeah.
I saw most of
Okay,
it, but
but
I didn't.
it's pretty much the same as the Italian speech that I've linked.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's a very powerful speech that she gave, and I'll just read some excerpts from it that'll give you an idea of what she's all about. And here's some things, and it's redacted for some stuff for brevity.
You're reading from the American one
No,
or
the Italian
the
one.
Italian? Okay, okay.
Yeah. So she's in the speech and she's talking about why is the family the enemy? Because it defines us, because it is our identity. Everything that defines us is an enemy for those who would like us to no longer have an identity and to simply be perfect consumer slaves. They attack national identity, they attack religious identity, they attack gender identity, they attack family identity. I must be citizen X, gender X, parent one, parent two. I must be a number because when I am only a number, when I no longer have an identity or roots, then I will be the perfect slave, the perfect consumer. And she goes on to quote someone else at the end of her speech. She says, fires will be kindled to testify that two and two make four. Swords will be drawn to prove that leaves are green in summer. That time has arrived. We are ready. It's a very, very powerful speech. And you do not see American politicians make this kind of speech because it fully embraces the fight against cultural Marxism. It identifies what they're trying to do to us. It identifies what Maoists did to Chinese. They want to break these social structures down. They want to break down these roots. Your loyalty to your family, to your identity, to your national identity, your ethnic identity, et cetera, et cetera. Now, she's not totally right in that they want to break down all identity. They allow you to have certain identities, just,
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
state approved one, the state approved ones, the ones that are convenient to them, right? The ones that work for them. But in
Yeah,
general,
that's what I found, yeah, kind of confusing about her speech is I felt like she was, you know, definitely onto something, and I couldn't tell if she was seeing things more clearly than I am or seeing things,
I
you
think
know,
she's seeing things very clearly.
dif differently.
She's seeing things
Because
clearly because the state wants to allow certain identities for you, but only ones that are convenient for them, that work for them. They don't want the things that make you question the state, right? They don't want to make you have identities that supersede the state sanctioned ones, right? They want
so
children
yeah,
to report on parents, et cetera, right?
so what would you say are the state sanctioned identities?
Ethnicity, right?
Yeah. Which is weird
LGBT,
because
right?
she talked about, like she said in her speech, like I can't define myself as Italian, right?
Well,
That was
when I say ethnicity, I mean uh, people who are non-white in white majority countries, they can identify, right? But white people need to cede that identity. Why? Because it's dangerous when the majority in that country identify in a way that is not convenient for the state to control, right? If Italians identified as Italian, or if white people in America identified as white people, that'd be a real problem. And in fairness, in fairness, I will say this. For the people who are afraid of that, who say this, oh, it sounds like fascism, it sounds like whatever. Okay, I can see how you think that because in human history, when the majority, when the majority of white people felt a strong identity in various countries, yes, it did become dangerous for people who were minorities. Yes, it did result in bad things and an imbalanced society. Yes, that is true. However, their solution is to break down those identities so much, like basically Christian, white, et cetera, family. They want to break those things down so much that there's just going to be this violent backlash. And it's not going to be healthy for society. And this violent backlash is now voting for people like Georgia Maloney. Not necessarily because they're racist or whatever. I'm not saying that. But because they're under assault. They're under assault. They can't just embrace who they are. I'm a white Christian in Italy, and yet I'm being told that that's wrong, that that's regressive, that it's, not politically correct, whatever it is. And a lot of people are rejecting that, and a lot of people are pushing back against that. And in the extreme, if those people push back really, really hard, could it be pushed into an extreme where it's, oh yeah, this is like fascism, and they start to discriminate against minorities? Yeah, that could happen. But here's the thing. It's only happening because
yep.
you idiots have pushed them into that corner where they felt like, oh, my identity is under assault. You know? That's why
I
they are
mean,
doing this.
it's already happened to me. I feel like.
I feel like in early 2000s, late 90s, we were in a pretty good spot where, okay, we acknowledge that, our past is not perfect. We have stuff to work on, but we're working towards a colorblind society, and people try to treat other people as individuals, and people not try not to be so tribalist. People made that good faith effort. But right now, the woke left is not making that good faith effort. They're making every effort to be tribalist, but just for their tribe, right? Just in the, hey, BLM riots are okay, but a few white people getting together and saying stuff is not okay. I was like, well, every common sense person is going to look at that and say, this is not equal treatment. What do you got? What is your agenda? What are you trying to do? And God forbid, if you are, a white Christian male, you probably will feel under assault, and then you're going to push back. And depending on how hard you push back, that that also could be ugly. So their behavior has precipitated a very ugly response. And I'm not saying that people voting for Maloney are part of that ugly response. I think it's a natural response. And she's disavowed being fascist and all those things. She just seems like a center right, right wing conservative politician. But I love that she's taking cultural Marxism straight on, and she's just saying this is what they're trying to do to us, okay, and we're gonna fight it. Whereas there's lots of conservatives in America that are still just talking about tax policy and more traditional conservative talking points. No, we need to start talking about this: how they're assaulting values such as the family, such as
Mm.
different types of identity, and they're just like Mao tried to take away all of those cultural social ties from people so that their only loyalty is to the state, because then they can be controlled. She says here it's to make a perfect consumer slave, which is part of it.
Exactly.
Which is part of
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another question that I had, which is, I feel like that observation, I'm not sure what to make of it. Like, I feel like on a very deep level, she might actually be correct, but I feel like that's also, maybe ultimately that's kind of what it boils down to. But I feel like if you just go up, a half level, I feel like there's a lot of other, things that are
I think, yeah,
coming into
I
play.
think she's only touched, it's accurate, but she's only touched on some of it. Yes, this is partly, BlackRock, big corporations, they want us to be malleable consumer slaves. They just want us to be cogs, right?
But then, what
But
what about the Lord of the Rings? The Lord of whatever, Girl
Sauron,
Power, yeah, rings, or
right, right,
The
right.
Black Bell, et cetera, et cetera.
This
Like,
cultural
are those,
assault, right?
yeah, are
That's
those
not just
about
about
consumerism?
I
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's not about just consumerism. That's about breaking down our values and our ties and our identities so that we can be controlled, right? Just like she said, they just want you to be citizen X. And it's high time that somebody actually said it because this is what's
I,
happening.
so I guess that's what I was saying. Where, if you just go a half step further, then you ask controlled by whom, right? I think the answer would be the corporations, wouldn't
The
it?
corporations, but also people in power in the government, the MSM, people who are just controlling this. They
Yeah.
they want, like I've talked before, they want to put the nuclear family under assault because in a society where the nuclear family is strong, your number one loyalty is to your nuclear family. It is not to Kim Kardashian. It is not to the whatever you hear on the mainstream media. It is not to Twitter, okay? They want a society where the people who are most influential in your life are not your mother and father, your brother and sister. They want a society where the people who are most influential are on Twitter or on TV. They can control you that way. They can make you think that just like the NPC meme, I support cause X, right? I support current cause, right?
Hmm.
Fill that in. That only works in a society that's where a bunch of people are atomized. They don't have families. They're not mainly influenced by their families. They're just influenced by what they see in media, right? And then they see all these Ukrainian flags on media. It's like that's current cause. So I support that. They see people wearing masks. I support masks because that's current cause, right? It's so much easier to control as opposed to when you have to talk to your family, when you have to talk to your mother and father and brother and sister. You're not just going to support current cause. You guys are talking amongst each other. You will decide as a family unit what is most important, and it's probably what is important to your family. And then after that, if you're religious, to your religion. And then after that, maybe your ethnicity or your national identity or whatever. It's not going to be to current cause. That's not going to be your primary loyalty. They don't want that. They want to be able to control using social media, using Google, using Facebook. They want to be able to control what it is you are loyal to, what it is you think is important. And Maloney knows that. It's clear that she knows that that's the dynamic that's happening. And she's there to fight against it. And we need more people like that. And here's what's great about it. She won that election. I can only imagine that it's going to be the same in other places. People are going to vote for this sort of stuff because people are identifying the same patterns. Okay, they're going to identify the same issues. Maybe they're not smart enough to articulate what's happening or what it is they're rejecting or what it is they're rebelling against, but deep down they do have a sense of what's going on. It's sort of like the wisdom of the group, right? The wisdom of the crowd. Individually, people are stupid, but in a crowd, they know what's going on. And what's going on is people in power are trying to cut these ties, are trying to reshape what it is you think, what it is you are loyal to, so that they can control you. And she just says that part out loud. There are very few. I don't know of many American politicians just saying this out loud. Like even DeSantis doesn't really say this stuff out loud, right? He just sort of like pushes back against dumb policies. But like big level thinking, like overarching umbrella thinking, he doesn't really touch upon that. This is that type of thinking. This is the crux of it. Okay? So all the stuff like, oh, dumb pandemic policies. Yeah, it's good to push back against dumb pandemic policies, but then what are those What's the cause of dumb pandemic policies? What is the ultimate goal of the people who put them into place? She's talking about those things, right? This is
Hmm.
like the big picture stuff, and a lot of people are not talking about it. So I hope that she's their prime minister for a long time. Probably won't be because Italy elects like a new prime minister every 2 years. But it's a great sign that people like this are getting elected and who are talking about what's really going on. Finally, there are people talking about what's really going on, and they're not, being assassinated.
Even though I'm still, relatively speaking, new to politics, I like to think that I am more informed than average. But when I, think about what you just said, and I look at my own, like the disagreements I've had in the past few years within my family over political issues, in some sense, you could say I've succumbed to their tricks, right?
You mean the mainstream
And
media, people in power?
yeah, well, basically what I'm saying is in my case, they've successfully broken down the family unit, you could say.
Yes, but not on your side, on the side of your family members. Your family members are bought into this shit.
Well, it doesn't really matter, right? The point is that we're no longer a unit. Whether, I have a better sense of reality or it's them, either way, we've lost, right?
Yes. And then now we're
It
in a
kind of does.
situation like, and I brought this up in another previous podcast, but there was that one story that really has impacted me to this day where there was a Chinese man in his 50s or 60s who, during the Cultural Revolution, told on his mother,
Hmm.
informed on his mother for being
Yeah,
anti-revolutionary, whatever, and she ended up dying because that's what happens, boys and girls, in the Cultural Revolution. Every single time you glorify communism and you think that it's great, just remember the 20 million people or whatever that died in the Cultural Revolution, which is more than the Holocaust, largely in cases like this, where they somehow made like a 10-year-old kid so ideological that he felt that it was a good idea or he was doing the right thing to report his own mother to the state. And probably knowing that, maybe not knowing she would die, but knowing that there would be very, very bad consequences. And yet he still did it. You know why? Because Marxist ideology successfully broke down the ties he felt to his own family. And you think that how could that happen? Like, it's your own mother. How could you possibly feel more loyal to the Chinese state run by Mao, a guy you never even met? And you're here you are, you're more loyal to them. And you will put your mother in your own mother in a situation where she probably will die. How could that ever? There's no way that could happen to me, right? I'm a
yeah.
rational thinking person. I'm a educated, person in the first world, and it's 2022, and I'd never succumb to such groupthink. I'd never be part of a mindless
Right.
crowd like that. No, you
It
would
actually
be.
shows how,
You
how
would be.
ignorant they are. Yeah.
You would be. You would be.
Yeah.
And just in 2020 to 2021, you probably were part of that crowd. You were part of one of the screaming at people for not wearing masks crowd. You were part of that crowd. It's so easy for you to think that. It's very
Yep.
similar to those psychological experiments where they do really simple stuff like, like everybody gets on an elevator and everybody who's part of it faces the back
Right.
like a weirdo. And the one person who's not part of the experiment, or well, they are, but they're not in on it. They just wait and see how long it will take till that person faces the back like a fucking idiot, right? It's like, why are you facing the back of the elevator? But they do it because everybody else is facing the back. And everybody wants to think that they're not the person who will face the back of the elevator like a lemming. I wouldn't
So
do
you
that.
did.
I
So
wouldn't do
you
that.
did take a psychology class
Oh yeah, I took
in
a
college.
psychology class. I did. Just
Yeah,
one,
yeah,
just
yeah,
one. But you learn all
yeah,
you need
yeah,
to in just one. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Everybody wants to say they're.
I did too.
Yeah,
I did
yeah.
too.
So we all know these examples. Everybody wants
Yeah.
to say they're not going to be the idiot that faces the back of the elevator. But then tell me this: how come so many people do it in these experiments? It's just It's just all the other people are idiots, right? Not you, though.
Yeah.
Not you. Well, here's the thing. Chances are, when the time comes, you're going to be one of those idiots too. When the time comes, you're going to report on your family too. If that's the state of the society. That's going to be you too. And the people in power, they know this. They know you're not special. You're not special. You're not special. You can be controlled. You can be manipulated. Just like people in these psychology experiments. You'll face the back of the elevator, even though you don't think you're going to be one of those people. Or, you know, um, the experiments where you're in a waiting room and everybody stands up when the bell rings, and you're like, why is everybody standing up? You guys are weird. But then about the fifth time the bell rings, you know what you do? You stand up
Right.
because that's what everybody
There's
else is
also
doing.
yeah. There's also the shocking experiment. What is that? I
The
can't remember
Milgram
what that was.
experiment.
Milgram. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah, the Milgram experiment. Oh, I won't shock a person until they're dead. Well,
yeah.
a lot of people did in that experiment, and it was proven to happen. So, yeah, they know this. People in power know this. You're not special. Well, maybe you're special. Maybe you're the different one, okay? Maybe I can give you that. But most people aren't. And people in
Maybe
power know this.
do you think it's safer to say that people who are not vaccinated have a higher chance of being one of those people to not turn around in the elevator?
I think so. Yeah, they're more independent thinking or whatever. But even some of them will do it. I mean, this is human nature. I don't want to single people out as being, "Oh, you're stupid. That's why you did this," or "You're morally corrupt. That's why you did this." No.
Yeah, it's your
They're
human.
human. They're human.
Yeah.
That's why they did this, okay?
Yep.
But that's the scary part. You just have to be human to succumb to this sort of thing. I don't think that Chinese man who reported his mother and sent her to her death, I don't think he's evil.
Yeah, especially if he was only 10.
Yeah, he's not an evil person, but he's typical of what can happen to people in an environment like this. And that's should probably scare you more. That it doesn't take evil people to perpetrate this sort of thing. It takes regular people to perpetrate these things in the right circumstance. And the people in power know what that right circumstance is, and they are pushing the buttons and moving you and manipulating you. And we need people to push back. We need people to push back. And in my opinion, people like, I know there's some people who think she's flawed or whatever, but as far as I've seen, she's one of the few people who's really saying it out loud, what we need to push back against and doing it. So I'm 100% pro Georgia Maloney. Um,
How do you rate DeSantis compared to her?
I think he rates very positively, but he doesn't talk about these big overarching issues. Like he doesn't talk about here's really the crux of the issue, right? He'll just push it back against the different little symptomatic portions like lockdown policies and things like that, right? Or different policies that are um,
Education, maybe.
education, like, drag queen shows or things like that. But he won't just say, hey, you know what? There are cultural Marxists out there who are trying to do X, and I'm
Hmm.
here to fight against X broadly.
Hmm.
He will just pick out, oh, this is a really dumb policy. Look how bad this is. I'm pushing back against that one policy.
What about Trump?
I don't think Trump cares about ideology.
Really?
I think he really only cares about himself.
Huh. Okay.
And just like furthering his own interests and, being popular or powerful.
I thought I've heard him speak, on
Has he?
on similar terms, but
Maybe,
yeah, I can't be sure.
perhaps. But that's why I am definitely heartened by this woman's election. I highly recommend you look into her speeches. I highly recommend you look into what she stands for because this is the type of thing you're going to need to vote for in the future if you want to push back against this sort of cultural Marxism. And it's more important that we just say out loud exactly what the fight is. Don't dance around what the fight is. Just say it out loud. There's no need for people on the right to say that, well, I'm for better tax policy. Well, we are for better tax policy, but that's not the main fight anymore. The main fight is here, and people need to know it, and we need to outline it, and it needs to be spoken out into the world so that people know that this is what's going on.
So a part of her speech I have a couple screenshots from her speech. Right, there was one which you read earlier, where she says, "I can't define myself as Italian, Christian, woman, mother. No." And then later she says, "I must be citizen X, gender X, parent one, parent two. I must be a number." I don't fully. She seems to contradict herself right there, right? Because she's saying, "I can't
Yeah, I
define
guess if
myself."
you read it, yeah, if you read it just like
Yeah, I can't
superficially.
define myself as a woman, and then the next thing she says, I must be, gender X, right?
And
So,
some of it might be lost in the translation. It is translated from Italian,
right,
right?
right.
So I'm certainly what she's probably referring to is, like the current gender politics where your pronouns in the bio, that sort of stuff, right?
Hmm, hmm.
Whereas if you just say that I'm a Christian white mother, Italian mother, it's just that's sort of not the right thing
Right.
these days. So that's probably the line she's drawing.
Yeah,
I think that's maybe lost in translation a little bit,
yeah,
but I get the meaning of what she's saying, of course.
yeah.
Certain identities are okay and they're favored. Other identities are threatening to the people in power and they must be clamped down upon. And it just so happens that those are the identities that are in the majority. That's not a coincidence. Most people in Italy are Italian. Most women are straight. Most women are mothers, right? Those are the identities that cannot be celebrated because in general they just want to break down identity, right? And if do a thought experiment, if for whatever reason non-binary identities become the vast majority of Italian society, the powers that be would clamp down on those identities too because they don't want you to be loyal to an identity that is threatening to the state. They want you to be loyal to the state. At the end of the day, that is really what they want to do. So this introduction of 32 pronouns and genders, it's not really they don't really love the 32 genders, okay? That's not what they love. That's not what they want in the future. What they want to do is destroy the status quo. So this nuclear family where it's straight man marries a straight woman, raises a family. And this is the strongest unit and they're loyal first to each other. They want to break that down. Just like Mao wanted to break down kids' loyalty to parents. They wanted them to be loyal to the cause, to Maoism, right? The thing that they bring in to break it down is not that important. It just needs to be broken down first. And what they're using today is the 32 genders, the non-binary, the this, the that, right? It's not like they want in the future everybody to identify strongly as non-binary. No, that's not what they actually want. They just want to break down this status quo family unit. They want everybody to be atomized. They want everybody to be like the liberal New Yorker who lives holed up in an apartment in New York and never talks to their family. That's their ideal citizen because they're only loyal to what they see on TV or on the internet or on Twitter or from tastemakers. That's what they're loyal to. They're not loyal to mom and dad. They're not loyal to their family unit, right? And in order to break down the thing that came before, they'll introduce whatever. But it's not the whatever that they're for. It's the breaking down that they're behind. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what's happened. There's a new Italian prime minister. Bravo for her.
Godspeed.
Yeah. Good luck. I wish you luck. The first thing she's going to do is limit immigration. Good. I think she says something, don't quote me on this, but I think she says something like, I'm welcoming of people, but if you come to my country, you come according to my rules.
Hmm.
Which just seems so common sense, right? Right. If you come to my home, you come according to my rules. It's the same with my home, isn't
Yeah.
it? I'm welcoming of people. Don't say I don't welcome people. Of course I welcome people.
It
But
just
when you come
seems,
to my home, you
yeah,
come according to my rules.
yeah. It just seems inseparable or inseparable from, the notion of a home or a country is to have walls and borders. It's just,
It seems so, but again,
yeah.
that's one of the things that the cultural Marxists want to dissolve. It's one of those, when I sit in my country and when I have national pride with the people who are here with me, that's a loyalty to something greater than whatever the people in power want to dictate, right? That's no good. That's no good. They don't want that. That's not good at all. You need to just be an atomized person who's just You're just loyal to whatever the people in power tell you to be loyal to, and that's that.
Do you think people in power are really thinking this way though?
Yes, I absolutely do.
Okay.
I think there are people who have sort of a long view and they know of these concepts. Like we know in history, for instance, from his writings that Mao Zedong thought this way. He
But
wasn't an
what
idiot.
about
He
okay,
wasn't an
but
idiot. This was
what
intentional
about
on his
like
part.
I don't know. What about Gavin Newsom or Joe Biden? They're not thinking like this, are they?
No, I don't think they're thinking about things this quite in this way. But they're part of an apparatus that is sort of thinking this way. There is somebody behind all of them that is thinking this way. And
Just
I don't want to be like a conspiracy theorist and just say, "Oh yeah, it's George Soros or whatever." But it's someone like that, okay?
uh,
Who is having this sort of long view and is thinking this way. They're thinking
what
about
about
how can
what about whoever's in the quote unquote White House, which is always disagreeing with what Biden says?
who's
Maybe
in the
those
White House
people.
disagreeing with what Biden's what?
Remember when Biden was talking about how we would back up Taiwan
Oh, and
if
they
there's an
say, "Oh no,
invasion,
no, he was just like
and then
being
the quote
senile."
unquote White House backtracks.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
I
so who are
well,
those people, and why is it?
right.
Why are they not
I
on the same wavelength as Joe
well
Biden?
because
I don't know.
because he has dementia and he just says whatever.
Or maybe it's
For
all
him,
planned. Maybe it's all planned. I don't know.
maybe,
Because
maybe.
they're just trying to be purposely contradictory or confusing so
Right.
that China doesn't know what the hell is actually going on.
Does China even care? I mean, we have stories about people in our military who are transgender and selling secrets to the Russians or whatever. Does anybody in China seriously think that if they started a hot war with Taiwan, that America would do anything about it? I mean, we always joke that the solution to all of this woke bullshit is to learn Mandarin. We always joke about that, but very soon, I'm not sure it's becoming a joke anymore. Is it just reality at this point? Because I think that if they do something right now, the United States would not push back. And even if we push back, would we be effective? I guess we would still be effective because we still have really, really expensive high tech weapons, and we have enough people who know how to use them that and we spend so much money on them that it would be very, very difficult to win a shooting war with us. Yes, that's true.
There is actually plenty of incentives to get in such a war, right?
For who?
I would say for whoever is going to be profiting from
Yeah,
this.
the military industrial complex, sure.
Yeah.
But is there any guarantee though that we would win such a war? I mean, yes, on paper we have so many advantages, but
That doesn't, if you think about it, it doesn't really even matter as long as the money keeps rolling in the right direction.
right. And just like in sports, you
Yeah.
play the game for
What's
a reason because on paper that's not when you play it, right? You have to actually play it. I don't know that we would win. So if China wants to invade Taiwan right now, they probably could. I think that they just don't because there's no real benefit to be had at this moment. Would they materially be more healthy or prosperous if they own Taiwan tomorrow? I don't think so. I don't think so because they would still have to pay quite a bit to get it. And then what are they getting? Pride is all. So how much money would they have to pay for pride? That's not worth it. They're in a financial crisis right now. It's not really the time for them.